feel somewhat underprepared for this episode.
There's not much out there about this album.
No, well, I mean, this is the podcast, but like everyone, like, so we'll say this in like 5 minutes again. Welcome to Noise Floor, a podcast about music and our favorite artist discographies. I'm Troy Sennett.
And I'm Matt Kistler.
And today we are continuing our Bright Eyes series with the other album that was released on January 25th, 2005. That would be Digital Ash and a Digital Urn. Just like its companion album, I'm Wide Awake It's Morning, it was released on Saddle Creek, produced by Mike Mogis, and occupies, I think, kind of an interesting place in Bright Eyes history as this album that has always lived alongside their most popular album. But Matt, you said, I think in our earlier in our series, or maybe it was just somewhere else online, that this was kind of the album you preferred of this pair when you first heard them.
Yeah, I kind of picked this as my album of this pair, and part of that was just because that was the one that I physically picked up first. But I think another part of it is that at least at this time in my life, like, unless lyrics like really caught me like in the moment, I wasn't latching super hard onto those, and I was latching more onto like interesting and different musical things. And that is what this is for sure, if nothing else.
Yeah, I was gonna ask what drew you to this album over I'm Wide Awake. Like, were you just standing in Sam Goody being like, which one has the cooler cover, or did you heard the singles?
Yeah, a little bit. I kind of knew the conceit of these two albums and like the vague differences between them, and I think, like, kind of given the choice, I was like, I kind of want to see what this sounds like a little bit more than I wanted to hear. You know, again, I was let's see, this was 2005, so 17.
Yeah, you're still in high school
at the time. Yeah, still in high school. Still like very much in my I don't really listen to country phase of my life. So like anything that was like labeled folk country, I was like a little like off put by, just out of hand, which was dumb. Fully admit that. But yeah, this intrigued me, and I, you know, as an album that like goes some interesting places production wise, it really hit the mark on that front, and then I got, you know, very lucky on that front and saw the Digital Ash tour with The Faint at the Riviera here in Chicago. It was one of the first shows I think I went to, like, just with my friends, like no parents involved in the trip at all, which is a wild thing to think about, but yeah, that was a wild tour because it was The Faint who do their thing, and made me wonder if I am maybe a little photosensitive. And then they were just the backing band for Bright Eyes on that tour, playing this album in full. And then I think the encore was Lover I Don't Have to Love and one other song. I forget what else they played, but it was conspicuously nothing from I'm Wide Awake on this tour at all, from what I understand.
I looked at some set lists, and I want to say it was like the Calendar Hung Itself or something like that. Let's see.
It might have been Neely O'Hara. I think it was
O'Hara. Yeah, I think that sounds right. But yeah, and so like, so you were then probably one of the people who was super into the Digital Ash tour, because in some of these interviews, Connor is like, why did we do it this way? Why did we do an I'm Wide Awake tour, and then after we were even more popular, come back and do a Digital Ash tour, because like, and not play any of the songs that people wanted to see?
So interestingly, and this might have just been a function of me being a dumb teenager, I don't think I knew that the whole this whole run of the tour was just Digital Ash shows. I think I was under the impression that you got one or the other album on any given night, which I know is not the case now, but that sounded very intriguing at the time, so I just kind of latched onto it.
I think it just would have been impossible to do in terms of like the gear they needed to bring.
Yeah, absolutely. That would have been insane. Unless the Faint could also just like play all the instruments needed for I'm Wide Awake, which would be cool, and I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think I agree on that front. Though it is maybe ill-advised to do that if you're planning a similar approach to a dual album release out there in the world.
Yeah. So when you look at these albums, do you tend to see them as like one in opposition to the other, or like using Digital Ash as like a reference point, and then I'm Wide Awake it's like, oh, here's the other stuff? Or because like I found that because I'm Wide Awake obviously is kind of my album of this pair, and I have historically had a very hard time seeing Digital Ash in any way other than just in opposition to I'm Wide Awake.
Well, I think the only reason I'm able to see it that way is because I approached it that way when I was young, was like, this is the one that I like. Like on reflection now, I had I been more open-minded when I was 17, I have a feeling that I would have ended up in the same boat, where this is like kind of people always refer to this as like the fraternal twin of I'm Wide Awake It's Morning, and the one that like maybe gets forgotten a little bit. I think I would have probably also ended up in that boat, because kind of looking holistically at these two albums right now, like we've kind of talked about how like these two records kind of represent a like split in like kind of the traditional Bright Eyes songwriting form, in that like we get these like more like stripped down songwriting focused tracks on I'm Wide Awake It's Morning, and then over here we have all the weird shit. And I think in a way, like kind of comparing how the songwriting shines through, which is like what most people are coming to Bright Eyes for good reason. It is much easier to digest the songwriting as great songwriting on I'm Wide Awake, because there's nothing getting in its way. And I don't think that happens on every track on Digital Ash, but I do feel like the fully like going for it production stuff on this record does kind of obscure the songs that live underneath, and I think we've talked about how that's kind of made very apparent by the companion EP on this one.
Yeah, and I go even further as to say there's a couple songs on Digital Ash where I think the production is trying to make up for a bit of a lack of punch in the songwriting that is there on like every song on I'm Wide Awake.
I can see that, yeah.
But you're right. It is like, this is a Mike Mogis album. Like, and you know, the way he talks about I'm Wide Awake being such an easy album to make that he was worried he wasn't doing enough. And then I wonder if going into this album, if I mean, part of it is it's fueled by the material, but also I wonder if that experience was like, okay, I need to do everything on
right.
Digital Ash, because
make up for all the stuff he didn't do elsewhere.
Yeah, and like I think this album gets sort of pigeonholed as like the electronic one or whatever, but like, and this is another thing that Connor said in the interview on Justin Cox's After the Deluge podcast, an interview that I'm halfway through listening to right now, but I can cite the parts of it that I've listened to. But he said that like this album got kind of pigeonholed as the electronic one, but this is a rock band, and there's really only a couple songs that have like truly programmed or electronic beats. It's a rock band playing with you know, a fair amount of synthesizers and a lot of mixing work and studio, not trickery, but using the studio as an instrument, I think, to make an album that sounds, you know, really unlike anything else that I've really heard before or since. It's, I mean, the kind of the highest compliment I can give it. I find this album from a songwriting perspective like maybe 50% as engaging as I'm Wide Awake, but just trying to listen to it as a producer or a mix engineer, I'm like, oh, he's doing stuff that is way out there in really cool ways.
Yeah, like I think this album is like pretty singular in a way. Like, yes, there are other artists doing like stuff that is like this, but I feel like if we are looking at this as the weird one, I feel like the weird stuff that like has been incorporated into Bright Eyes material thus far is so varied that like kind of putting it all out here kind of makes for this album that like yeah, it doesn't really sound like much else, especially at the time, that's out there.
Yeah, and it does have just kind of the fusion of organic with electronic elements or like digital elements is, I mean, that's kind of where the heart of the album is, I think, and that's where it connects to the songwriting in a way that I think is pretty interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Like this record feels very congruous in its lyric writing, paired with its production, I think, in many ways.
Yeah, and I mean it's easy and like pretty obvious to say that like these two albums are paired in ways that are, I'm Wide Awake is a morning album, a daytime album, a album about renewal and rebirth, and Digital Ash is an album that's like obsessed with death, and from the color palette of the artwork to the tone of the songs, the key, the chord changes, everything just is very dark and minor, and it is very much a nighttime album. And again, that's like the obvious thing, but I think it's informative, and it's you could imagine the sort of Fevers and Mirrors version of this era of Bright Eyes, where if they had tried to stuff all of these songs onto one album, or 15 of them onto an album, and it's 80 minutes long, and they're trying to do too much, and like I think I've said before that separating these two groups of songs was the best decision that Mike and Connor ever made in their career, I think, both just for their career and also creatively. And it lets, again, even the parts of this album that I don't like as much, I think they're well served by getting to live apart from the I'm Wide Awake stuff.
Yeah, I think so. Because I would argue there are a couple of songs on this record that do feel like, with some minor tweaks, they could have been on Wide Awake.
Yeah, but
kind of lyrical themes aside, I suppose. But
yeah, that the lyrics are what are kind of what lands something like Goldmine Gutted, I think, on this album.
Right. Yeah, I would argue the same for Hit the Switch.
Yeah,
in particular.
But we should get into the songs, unless you have any more sort of preface stuff.
No, I think we should do it.
All right. This album starts off with Time Code, which is the challenging sound collage-y ambient intro that I'm Wide Awake does not have. It is just kind of low rumbling synths and just one short stanza of lyrics and some blown out drum beats that gets pretty big. What do you think of this as an intro?
I mean, I think it's great because my first note on this one is for people who have watched Twin Peaks: The Return with captions on. It's intense ethereal whooshing all the way up to when those lyrics come in, and it's great.
Yeah,
yeah. I really like this one. I think it's pretty effective for what it is, and it like sets the tone for the album pretty well as like, the Bright Eyes intro that's supposed to scare away the normies is concerned. Because again, this one is just going to delve further into that kind of thing in spots in ways that the band really hasn't done thus far. But I feel like the little bit of lyrics that we get here is pretty effective. Like the phrase "drink liquid clocks till I see God" is a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the first word said on this album is death, which is
literally.
It's the two themes that unite basically every song on this album are death and time, and I guess, and then sort of those things combined together, you get this idea of inevitability and determinism in a way, and can you stave off death, or would you want to, that sort of thing, and like. Yeah, these four lines are kind of sum that up. That's kind of a grim view of life in a way. It's a little bit fatalistic, but that's kind of what the album is.
Yeah, that is 100% what the album is most of the time.
Yeah. But then, so after that, you get to the first, I would say, kind of like proper song of the album, which is Goldmine Gutted, which is a great start because this is my favorite song on this album and like a top 5 Bright Eyes song for me. This is just kind of a perfect a perfect sort of slice of life song, and with some just really fascinating production by Mike Mogis.
Yeah, like we've got like right out the gate, we've got these like wildly panned drums. Like the percussion on this song like stands out particularly for me. Like there's some cool counterpoint stuff happening with synths and guitars later on, but like I mean, maybe unsurprisingly, like this is a very percussion forward album in a way that I would argue not really anything thus far in the catalog has been. Which also might be part of what endeared me to it. And that's going to become more obvious as the album goes on. But I think on the Genius notes, it's mentioned that this has a tie to Stray Dog Freedom, which is a song I'm less familiar with. Are you aware of this connection?
I mean, that's like a Casadega era B-side, is that right?
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have not revisited that song in many years. So no, I don't have anything to. I mean, I think it's just that he uses the phrase again for the title.
That's totally fair.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, maybe we'll come back to that reference next week. But I mean, there are a bunch of lyrics I think are really worth pointing out in the song. My favorite one, or my favorite kind of image here, is the blinking midnight clock, which is again sort of clocks are referenced all across this album, but usually in a sort of unstoppable way, and this image of the blinking midnight clock, the alarm clock where you've never set the thing and it just blinks 12. Is the way he uses that to kind of symbolize this seemingly endless youth when you're kind of he's looking back on this time in this relationship, this sort of carefree, you're young, you can just kind of listen to records and do whatever you want. I love that as an image. And you've seen the latest season of The Bear, right?
I've watched part of it. Hulu wasn't cooperating with me for a while, so
okay. There's an episode, I don't know if you've seen it yet, there's a Sydney-focused episode where she spends a day hanging out with her cousin and her cousin's kid, and it's like a total, you're out, this whole season of The Bear is all, like, also similar to this album, kind of obsessed with clocks and time, and they're always saying every second counts, and there's this countdown clock that's sort of running throughout the season. But this one episode is totally removed from that, and in the background, and then it foregrounds it at the very end, is her cousin has never set the clock on her oven, and so it just is blinking 12, and it's this wonderful image that kind of works the same way to symbolize a sort of carefreeness and escape, and I really liked that.
I love that. That's that I definitely see the tie here, and like that, the kind of the attitude of everybody's gonna die except me because I'm gonna live forever, that like I feel like a lot of songwriters get to at some point in their career singing about.
Yeah, and I mean, and obviously this song turns at the end with all those white lines that sped us up. We hurry to our death. So it's you have to leave it behind at some point.
Yeah, lot of cocaine on this album too.
Yep.
big theme here.
Yeah, I love the phrase "the sorrowful Midwest."
That's really good. I do like that we kind of get the Midwest transplant in New York bit here.
Yeah, which is again comes back later on the album too.
Right. Yeah.
Next up is Arc of Time Code, which is a song where this is not a song that had ever kind of stuck with me before this week getting into this album, but this has become another favorite of mine.
Okay, I'm glad you like this one because I've always loved this song.
It's the production on this song is insane. The way that the drum beat is cool, but then the way that the acoustic guitar like kind of pokes in and out of it and does these flourishes that somehow feel so percussive, and then there's this like warpy bass tone underneath it. I was just like turning the song up and up in my headphones, like what is going on, and I need to know everything about this song.
Yeah, the guitar in particular has always stood out to me because like it's you sometimes hear about like producers and musicians talking about how they'll make instruments do things that they normally wouldn't do by like just kind of literally chopping up their waveforms, and that's what it sounds like they're doing here with the guitar. Like there's just these like unnatural stopping points in the like resonance of the guitar. Like we just go from like sound to dead silence in a way that you can't do in real life. And I think that's super cool.
what I didn't do, what I should have done, I should have looked up a video of them playing this live to see kind of how they did it, or at least how they would perform it, because like, I'm just obsessed with the things that the band is doing on this song.
Yeah, I gotta watch that set that you put in the show notes. I referenced it real briefly just to like remember kind of what the stage setup looked like for this tour, because it has been literally 20 years since I attended that show.
Yeah.
But yeah, lyrical thing I want to point out. There's a wild description of ascending to heaven in this song that I kind of love.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
If you make friends with Jesus Christ, you'll get right out from that chalk outline, and you'll get dolled up, and you'll dress in white and take your place in his chorus line. And it goes on from there. This idea that like, heaven is this like the saintly compromise, and then it kind of builds into this idea. You'll do the dance that was choreographed at the very dawn of time. This idea that your entire life, your death is just determined and fated, and you really have no control over it.
Yeah, again, like breaching the time subject, but going into time in memoriam, as it were.
Right. This is kind of the song that's most, tying up the ideas of clocks and clocks and time and death. And then it gets to this: on a circuit board we will be reborn again at the end, which is a kind of interesting idea about like digital immortality.
Yeah, right, which is a thing that we all have to think about nowadays.
Yeah, obviously this predates Black Mirror by quite a bit, but that was what the line reminded me of.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Next up is Down in a Rabbit Hole, which is a really kind of groovy and brooding song at the end. There might be some guitar in there, but it's minimal. But like you said, this is kind of the cocaine song.
Yeah,
there's
this
a lot
is 100% the cocaine song
in here. I love the imagery in it of like this house that the characters are living in that gets so neglected and abandoned that it becomes like a thing that kids dare each other to touch.
Yeah, and like I feel like most people have a memory of a house, like maybe not quite like that from their childhood, but like the weird house on the block where like you're a kid and you don't talk to your adult neighbors, so you just kind of like make up rumors about the ways that they are.
Yeah, that's To Kill a Mockingbird. It's it.
Yeah.
Like it's a very sturdy idea in fiction too, as well as like kids in real life.
For sure, yeah.
There's also this element in this song of if your thoughts should turn to death, gotta stomp them out like a cigarette, which is sort of using the drugs as a way to stave off the sort of inevitability of the pressing ideas of the real world or death or whatever it is.
Yeah, it takes you out of it. That kind of stuff takes you out of time in a way.
Yeah,
much like the blinking midnight clock. You don't, your mind is taken off the ever passing moment, as it were.
As MXPX would say.
Yeah, exactly. That's. I don't know why I felt the need to pull that out just now.
Weird band to cite while talking about cocaine.
Am I ever not thinking about MXPX? Yes, I'm often not thinking about MXPX, but right now I am.
Yeah. There's a cool thing going on with the strings in the outro of the song. I think it just gives the song gets really big. There's kind of a weird guitar solo too.
Yeah, it's like not shreddy, but it's like kind of nuts.
Yeah, you can hear like the faint influence in that for sure.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
Next up is Take It Easy, Love Nothing, which was, I guess, nominally the single off of this album. Although again, it got, I think, nothing close to the attention that the singles from I'm Wide Awake got. But this one is kind of a cool intro. It starts with like a palm muted guitar, which is not something that we get a lot on this album. And then this is one that's very electronic. Jimmy Tamborello, who I mostly think of as like a Postal Service guy, although he's produced a ton of stuff, worked with Milo Kiley among others, did the production on this song, and it's probably the most electronic song here, I think.
I think you'd be correct in saying that, yeah, which makes sense if Jimmy's involved. Like that's kind of his whole thing.
Yeah, it's a cool element. It's this is probably, actually, this song is probably the reason this album gets pegged as electronic, even though it's something a little bit more than that.
Yeah, like I think as a result, this song is like kind of fun despite its subject matter.
Yeah, I mean it's a song about like a hookup that just kind of with a friend that then you kind of realize there's nothing romantic there, even if you want there to be.
Yeah, a real quick friends to lovers to maybe not friends anymore at all on this.
Yeah.
One.
I do like the end that kind of feels like a sort of meta commentary on his own writing style. Just like, I will trap you in a song tied to a melody, and I'll keep you there so you can't bother me.
Yeah, I wrote down that, like, oh wow, this is about all of the songs, isn't it?
Yeah,
but specifically this one.
Yeah, it's easy to draw a line for something like "Lover I Don't Have to Love" to this song.
Yeah.
Although think the song is a little more wistful and a little less, I don't know, sort of darkly indulgent as "Lover I Don't Have to Love."
Yeah, the stakes feel a lot lower here in a way.
But it's also an interesting contrast with "First Day of My Life," which is this kind of pure love song that we talked about as like a realist love song, but it's still, I think, a very pure song. Whereas I think this is working with a tougher set of emotions.
Yeah, like if we're talking about a spectrum here, on one end we have "Lover I Don't Have to Love," on the other end we have "First Day of My Life," and somewhere in the middle we have this song.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it's and Lua is kind of obviously feels like a connected song to this too.
Yeah, definitely.
Then we got "Hit the Switch." Are we going through these too fast? I don't know. But you got "Hit the Switch," which is another song about drugs and hooking up with the friend.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
But this is kind of you mentioned this the sort of Midwest transplant idea that runs through, especially "I'm Wide Awake," but also on this album. But this song is kind of about wanting to get away from everything that the city represents and get back to Nebraska in this sort of like simpler idea of life that then might, this girl that he is interested in, but then might not actually have waited around for him.
Yeah, and I kind of found that obviously, like, everybody gets homesick at some point if they are away from home, and like that's a pretty universal thing. But like, kind of given the like more positive energy put towards NYC in "I'm Wide Awake," it's kind of this is a nice contrast to like all that like yeah, no, like this didn't actually like fix me, and also like I maybe want to go home a little bit, but if I go home, this friend is going to let me stay with them, and I'm not sure how I feel about that, because like, what am I doing for them, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I like that the especially the first verse, other parts of the song are like very much about this feeling of like solipsism, which is I feel like not a feeling that most people put out front in their writing, but this idea that like, from the back porch of my mind, the only thing that's alive, I'm all there is. It's like really kind of shocking lyrics to hear.
Yeah, and it, like we've run into this before in the Bright Eyes catalog, but like this is one of the more blatant times, especially this early in a song. Like usually we kind of build to that,
build up to the big emotional confession.
So yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, and then I mean, obviously, death comes to this song too, with these this discussion about nightmares, and then what is the lyric? He's like hungover, and then in the morning's clean light pours in through the window. Sometimes I pray that I don't die. I'm a goddamn hypocrite.
Yeah,
it's kind of the way the song climaxes.
Yeah, that kind of two-liner of I sometimes I pray I don't die. I'm a goddamn hypocrite is like not surprising in the context of a Bright Eyes song, but it really, like, if you've never heard another Bright Eyes song before, you feel like you might understand this guy's deal a little bit more in those two lines alone.
Yeah. And then I like the sort of the little bit at the end that there's no right way or wrong way, you just have to live.
This a positive turn, which we rarely get in the context of this catalog.
Yeah. Then next up is I Believe in Symmetry, which I think of as kind of the centerpiece of the album. A song that uh, kind of kicks off immediately with the vocal, which is not a super common thing for Bright Eyes to do.
Yeah.
But this is a song about, again, kind of the movement of time, the arc of time, to borrow a phrase that is both in these lyrics and in another song title. What do you think of this one?
I have always loved this song, honestly. I do love that we kind of get this since the whole album is like obsessed with time in a way. I love that we kind of speed run some like real life milestones right out the gate. And then like that all culminates in the line, how time can move both fast and slow amazes me, which I really love. This is a thing that like I feel like Connor specializes in, is like kind of running us through these big ideas and then like basically like putting a concluding paragraph in the form of a line on like a stanza. But yeah, I don't know. There's some other like cool like similes happening on here. What is the insect comparison that I mentioned on my? Oh yeah, the instinct of the blind insect who makes love to the flower bed and dies in the first freeze. This like kind of idea of like serving your purpose basically, and then that being enough, which feels like an almost aspirational thing for Connor in terms of like things that are running in the back of his mind.
Yeah, well, and especially when you kind of follow the song to its end, which is this, the song builds up to this, I think, really incredible outro, or the back half outro, with this interesting bass line and another cool drum beat and the string arrangement that's kind of soaring. And it's got the drum panning thing from Goldmine Gutted, but lyrically it goes to this, you give to the next one and the next one down the line, and it's this idea of like, it's this the progression of time, it's inevitable and you have a place in it, and whether it's fate or it's something that you're doing, you are part of this sort of endless loop of life.
Yeah, and the amount of repetition we get on that idea in this song, which again, like pretty rare for Bright Eyes to repeat one thing so much. Like you can tell that's what we're trying to drive home here.
Yeah. I just got myself to blame, leave everything up to fate when there's choices I could make.
Yeah. We again get some like really big strings in like both the bridge and the outro of this song that I really, really love.
This was kind of the song that sort of sold me on the album again, as I was listening, like doing my first listen through it in probably 10 years earlier this week, or last week I guess, that I was like, oh, I get what this album is when I heard this one. Thematically, musically, I think it all really comes together here.
Yeah, this really feels like a thesis in a lot of ways, on kind of the broader themes of this album, like both musically and lyrically.
Yeah. Then we got The Devil in the Details, which I was so enthusiastic about I Believe in Symmetry, and this is one that I don't like as much. This is the one that in my memory is the kind of when I first heard this album many years ago. This is the one that kind of retained that, oh, this is kind of a plodding album that I can't really get engaged with. I struggled with the song a little bit.
Yeah, I think this one stands out to me mostly from like a production standpoint. And I do think there's a lot of like interesting and unique stuff here. Like this is a song where we get some harp, which I think is really cool. What I know I already said that the percussion on this album stands out a lot to me, but I think it's particularly notable in this song because it's like not really being used as percussion for the most part. Like it's almost like in a lot of like electronic synth music, you have this idea of a pad, right? Where like there's just kind of this repetitious figure that's like maybe kind of amorphous happening kind of like at the bottom of the mix to just kind of fill things out. And the percussion on this feels more like a pad than anything to me, which is something that I don't feel like I see a lot.
Yeah, I can get that. That's again, that feels like Mogis doing something, trying to do something to differentiate, especially from other stuff in the genre at the time.
Yeah, for sure. But but yeah, some other like cool little things on this song. I really like that there's full silence right after the "I have no way of telling the two apart." The first one, I think it repeats.
Yeah,
Oh no, it's just the one. But like I think that's really neat. I always love when silence is used effectively in music. Um and then like, there's that part where everybody's just kind of like going off on a riff, like where we would normally have a solo, we kind of have everybody like almost soloing but not like doing anything nuts, and I think that's kind of fun. There is definitely a guitar solo in there, but like everything kind of feels like it's doing counterpoint with each other.
the guitar solo is particularly strange. It's one of those,
Yeah.
like almost like one note. I don't, I don't really know how to describe it. It is an odd sounding guitar solo though.
Yeah, yeah, I put quotes around solo in my notes.
It's more about the tone and texture than like the melody of it.
Yeah, exactly.
I do like the line that the song ends on is good. I am the first one I deceive. If I can make myself believe, the rest is easy.
Yeah, that's really good, honestly.
Yeah. It's one of the, I mean, he has a lot of like almost mantra like lyrics on this album, and I'd say that's one of them.
Yeah. This one's introspecting real hard and like ends up in that place fairly often as a result. And like I think it works when it's good. So
Yeah. Then we got Ship in a Bottle. Which is kind of the closest this album gets to the country, country adjacent stylings of I'm Wide Awake. But it does it even still with this like very ominous organ sound and arrangement. I really, really like this song.
I like the song a lot too, and I think part of it is because it's like it's like jaunty in a way.
Yeah.
In a way that like the more upbeat tracks on I'm Wide Awake were. But there are some real odd things that get thrown in this one. There's that bridge where there's a baby crying through like half of it.
I swear to God, every single time I've listened to the song, I have taken off my headphones and looked at the baby monitor and been like, which kid is it now? And it's like,
oh God, yeah. This is also, I think, the only song I know of offhand that mentions a microfish, which I do love.
I was trying to think if there was another one, but yes. That's a very specific. I mean, kind of interesting in the context of this album too, because that's the newspaper print off the microfiche slide. That's old technology. That's
Old
sort
tech,
of
yeah.
that's sort of the opposite of what he's playing with. Like we'll live again in a circuit board or whatever on other songs on this album.
Yeah, I was trying to pick every once in a while. If the phrase microfiche comes up at all, I picture there is a scene in Night in the Woods, a video game for those who are not familiar, where you literally like use a microfiche to like read old newspapers. So that's what I always picture, because I think I used one in real life once as a kid, maybe.
Yeah, I don't think I ever have. I missed that era of research.
It's for the best.
I love there's something about the vocal performance in the song, particularly on the line like we have built this ship in a wine bottle, that he lets himself like go a little bit more than he typically does on this album, and it's reminded me a little more of Lifted and Fevers and Mirrors. Just in the performance in a way that I think is like I don't know, I get excited hearing his voice do that again, because I think I don't want to say he's restrained on this album, but I think he's singing in a way that is a little more deliberate and less like unhinged yelling.
Yeah, no, I think that's completely fair. Another like vocal thing that I noticed was that we get the like kind of contrasting vocal doubling that we've gotten before, but it interacts with this song's arrangement so much more differently than it does on any other Bright Eyes song, I think. And I think that's kind of cool to kind of have these moments where we pull in like things in the Bright Eyes bag of tricks, vocal wise, that kind of get relitigated in like this format. And I think that's really cool. maybe a shame that it really kind of only happens on this song.
Yeah. And I mean, this album or the song also has like a bit of, the ship in a bottle image is used to get at this idea that like if you could preserve, like if you could truly preserve, then you would never grow old. Again, another way we talked about with the drugs on Down in the Rabbit Hole and the clocks on Goldmine Gutted is just these ways of escaping the march of time.
Yeah.
Next up is Light Pollution. Another song that I just really, really love. It's a little more of a rocker. This one reminded me a lot of something that, or well, I guess it's the reverse. What Spanish Love Songs is doing on their most recent album, No Joy, reminded me a lot of this song.
Oh, okay, I can see that. I can totally see that.
It's kind of melodically, but also like Spanish Love Songs has been moving from being a kind of a punk band into a band that uses a lot of synthesizers, and I feel like this album is probably a bit of a reference point for them.
I would totally believe that.
Yeah, heck, maybe loving No Joy so much is what brought me back a little more positive on this album than I have been in the past.
You know what? It's possible.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to listen to them back to back now.
I kind of do too. It's actually been a bit since I've listened to No Joy, but I mean they do have those 2 new songs that came out recently that I listened to a lot. But this song is about the story of one John A. Hobson. Whether that is a real person or not is unclear. But he's, I don't know. This is a kind of a storytelling song, the kind of thing that I think Connor hasn't really done as much on on these 2 albums. But this idea that he kind of is like it goes through his kind of, I don't know about radicalization, but his sort of fall from grace and then out to his death.
Yeah, I think to your point about radicalization, that this is him passing the torch on to Connor in this song, or the narrator.
Yeah.
And then I don't think as a direct result of that he meets his ultimate demise, but we kind of track his life through its remainder, which is pretty bad and pretty downhill. But as we all know, you're a lot closer to being homeless than you are to being a billionaire at any given moment in your life. So it can happen to anybody.
Yeah, I mean, do you think this song is meant to be like kind of a warning? Because it's like, it has this idea that he kind of gets nihilistic and then gets into, I guess, that he got a nightlife, lost his day job. It, to me, implies that he, got into drugs or drinking too much or whatever it was, and decided that the thing that he did in life, his job, whatever, was pointless, and that's how he ends up homeless.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see it. I could see it as kind of a warning, but maybe not in a moralistic way, just in a this is how the world will be to you under capitalism specifically, obviously. There's that line, you're as good as dead without a bank account,
right,
which kind of hammers that point home. But just backing up slightly, I do love that we get a very direct Dylan reference on this song. The
old folk songs about the government.
Yeah, listening to records in his basement, old folk songs about the government. That's just a fun little touch, I think. And, obviously they're probably literally listening to Bob Dylan in the fiction of the song. So
yeah, and in real life, I mean, it's obviously that's a comparison that comes up a lot. More with the I'm Wide Awake stuff, but I mean, anyone who's listening to Connor a lot. I mean, we talked about it on his very first album. When he was 13 years old, he was already kind of riffing on Dylan a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. You kind of already touched about the synthiness on this song, but I feel like in the bridge in particular, that I associate that synth tone with The Cure specifically, and I kind of love it as a result.
Yeah. I can hear that for sure.
Yeah.
And the song kind of builds to Hobson's death by the end. This kind of striking image of Connor doesn't even really know what happened, or whatever, the narrator doesn't even really know what happened to him. He just knows he went out for a drive, and maybe he was changing a song on the radio and lost control, but whatever he was doing, he did he did escape society at least for a minute, and to
Yeah.
see the stars out there.
Yeah, that bit at the end, but I bet the stars seemed so close at the end, and then at the end repeats. Like it's
haunting.
It's very haunting, yeah, but also like kind of comforting in a weird way.
Yeah. Next up is the theme from Pinata. This is the one that I would most call like electro folk, I guess.
Yeah, it's got an acoustic guitar on it. It's wild.
Yeah, this is a song. The one time on this record that I was like, this is a song that feels like it could exist, independent of Mike Mogis's production flourishes, and it almost feels like the production was sort of built up in this song to make it fit on this record, rather than it feeling like a song that was an ideal fit for the album from the first place, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have a note here that like at its core, this song feels like it has more in common with Fevers than anything more recent than that, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. This song ends with a very like affirming lyric, which also is kind of not a ideal fit for this album. I mean, this is like if I was hacking up this record, like I'd cut this song probably. Not that I hate it. I just think that it isn't as good of a fit, and I feel like it kind of stops the album in its tracks between Light Pollution and Easy Lucky Free.
I think I can totally see that. But yeah, I think I like this song. I think it might have been better served as a B-side in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's probably worth mentioning the reference again to determinism and design. It's hard for me imagining the flaws in this design, which is, thematically does connect it to the rest of the album for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Like it feels like it belongs, but like if it had really like been meant to fit, like it probably needed some more time in the production of it, as it were.
Yeah. But then we get to the closing track, Easy Lucky Free. This song, kind of along with Take It Easy is the legacy of this album, I think. This was also released as a single, or at least it has an EP sort of based around it.
Yeah.
And this is a song that's just this big expansive closing track that has at least, if not an optimism, then an acceptance of death in it. And is I feel like all of the trying to stop time or escape the march of time stuff on this album kind of sort of breathes out in this song, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, this feels like an exhalation, I think, is a really great way of putting it. Yeah.
I love the imagery of like the once the satellite's deceased, it blows like garbage in the streets. I think that's a great image. I don't know. There's a lot of, again, it's a Bright Eyes song. There's a lot of good imagery in it.
Right. Yeah, of course. I found it surprising getting to this point in the record and hearing a vocoder for the first time.
Yeah.
Because there's like the vocals are like fairly unprocessed for the most part until you hit those backing vocals with the like "Don't you weep for them, don't you weep." And that's something that we'll talk about the remixes maybe a little bit later, but like that's something that weirdly gets maintained in I think all of them. But yeah, I don't know. I got to that point and I was like, is there vocoder anywhere else on this record? No, there wasn't. Huh? Weird. Feels like that's something they would have put all over this thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess that's the restraint of from a producer standpoint of saying, we're gonna make a more electronic-ish album, but then we're gonna use those tools sparingly so it doesn't become all about we put Connor through the T-Pain filters or whatever on this album.
Sure, yeah, and like I think to that point, like kind of backing out on the album a little holistically for a second here, I think for the most part it makes it feel more timeless, if you'll pardon the like kind of pun with the album themes.
Yeah.
Like this album doesn't sound dated, and this song in particular, like that moment when like people use vocoders all the time, like especially in like hyperpop and stuff like that nowadays, but like I feel like the use of it here like is almost jarring as a result of like it not being anywhere else on the album, but like it doesn't like super throw me off. It just made me go, oh huh, that's a thing we're using here.
Yeah, I like that it's a thing they make work on one song without having to feel like it needs to be like part of an essential part of the sonic palette of the album.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I really like there's the stanza of like, don't be a criminal in the police state, you better shop and eat and procreate. Just this idea that like, oh, even you got vacation days, you might escape to a condo on the coast. Like even the escape is not a real escape.
Yeah, you're still operating within the thing that you are oppressed by.
Right, and which is, I mean, and time is the oppressor for a lot of this album, which then goes right into I set my watch to the atomic clock. I always figured there'd be time enough. I never let it get me down. There's something about that feels like it's calling out me specifically for being so like neurotic about time.
Oh, no.
So that would made me think a little bit.
Yeah, that's completely fair. Like, yeah, and obviously specifically referencing the atomic clock and then talking about a bomb, obviously a clever turn of phrase there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like ending that on it, I never let it get me down is a wild thing to end on for that stanza in particular. But yeah, I don't know. Like it's this like you said, this song feels like kind of an exhale, kind of a letting go. Especially at the end where we get to this this like repeating of or free or free or free, but then end on there is nothing, just over and over again as it like kind of continuously gets more washed out.
Yeah, I mean, and then the sort of sound collage elements that we talked about on just about every Bright Eyes album so far, kind of sneak their way back in for the end. There's even like a full stop and start again somewhere in there.
Yeah, like it's like somebody's like manipulating tape and like they accidentally like grabbed it full stop for a second, and then
I don't think it's like that or accidentally. I think that's legitimately what they did.
It's probably exactly that in the studio for real.
Yeah, but it's a cool moment at the end. That I don't know. It's like I said, it's exhaling and it's sort of acceptance and sort of being okay with death as maybe being okay with that inevitability by the end of the record.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing as easy, lucky, or free,
yes,
as it turns out.
But yeah, that's Digital Ash. There's not as much sort of extra stuff around this album. We talked about One Jug of Wine, Two Vessels with I'm Wide Awake because that stylistically fit more with that. There's really just a couple of sort of single/EPs. There's the Take It Easy Love Nothing EP, which was released along with Lua as the not only did they release these albums on the same days, they released the first singles on the same day in October of 2004. And the B-sides of this are Burn Rubber, which is a Simon Joyner cover, and Cremation, which is just like a real weird instrumental song. Thoughts on either of these?
Not really. It is wild that they close that with Cremation though. Which I mean, you know what? It's maybe not that wild in the context of this whole album cycle. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, and then there's an Easy Lucky Free EP, which is the radio edit of Easy Lucky Free, along with some remixes of that song and Goldmine Gutted. I listened to these remixes once, but in my usual fashion, just not much for remixes. But do you have thoughts on any of these? They've got Her Space Holiday, James Figurine, Hot Chip, Danger Mouse all pitching in on these.
Well, one, I want to say the Easy Lucky Free radio edit is for cowards who don't want to listen to the end of that song. And everybody should always listen to the album version. I understand why they do that, because if you're literally going to play this on like terrestrial radio, unless you're an independent radio station, you probably don't want to have a minute of sound collage in your set. I don't know. I think I'll do a quick rundown of the remixes. The Her Space Holiday remix doesn't really do a lot for me. There is a really cool flute solo in that one that I do like quite a bit. But like a lot of the decisions made on that remix are kind of baffling to me. The James Figurine, aka Jimmy, who we talked about earlier, aka Didn't Tell, it's a remix. Like there's some weird stuff going on with the vocals on this one. I think the outro of that remix is my favorite part because it doesn't really have much relation to the song. But I like the Hot Chip remix. I think doing like the kind of like acapella harmonies for like basically like the bed that the song sits on was a really cool move, especially in an album that like is remixed or something that's remixing something that is so inorganic by choice. I think it's really cool to like use the human voice as an instrument on that. There's also some cool like minimal percussion on that one that I do like a lot. But I also like Hot Chip, so I'm kind of biased.
Yeah. They did another, was it a Bright Eyes one, or did they do a Rilo Kiley one that we talked about?
They were one of the Breaking Up remixes.
Okay.
I think, for Rilo Kiley, for those who didn't listen to that series. And I guess there's one more remix, the Danger Mouse remix of Easy Lucky Free. It sounds like a Danger Mouse remix of Easy Lucky Free. Like, that dude has a sound and he does it well, so I liked it. The only way I was able to listen to it was on SoundCloud from a 7-inch rip, so like your mileage may vary on that front. But
yeah, maybe not the ideal sound.
There's probably some more bass there that I cannot hear because of the way that it was ripped. And also like the limitations of pressing a thing to vinyl.
Right. Cool. Yeah, I mean that's really all that I had on the B-sides and bonus tracks of this era, but we do have the companion EP, which this one came out this was still 2022. Yeah. And so like we talked about on I'm Wide Awake, where that companion EP was sort of reimagining some of those songs in the style of Digital Ash. This is taking some Digital Ash songs and reimagining them as sort of folkier, more organic sounding songs a la I'm Wide Awake This Morning. What do you think of this companion EP?
This is my favorite one so far. Like,
same,
no question. I think the song choices on this were really great. I might not have put Down in a Rabbit Hole on this. I might have subbed it out for something else. But like, Hit the Switch, like I think I kind of mentioned this in the episode. Like, it felt like it was in line with like this style of writing already, and like stripping it back further like really like exposes the great song underneath any of the production decisions on the album. There's some great trumpets on that one. I really like the redo of Arc of Time.
That mandolin.
They do the fun word painting thing where when he gets to end, the music dies, everything stops, and I love it, even though it's corny as hell. There's an organ solo on that one. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So my thing, I love all this stuff. I agree with basically everything you said. I love the way these songs sound. But I think it's an interesting contrast to look at how modern day Bright Eyes does a sort of folkier sound versus how the guys that Connor had playing with him from, like, we talked about this, like, New York jazz folk scene guys playing with him, and like like I said, I love these arrangements, but there's an energy to the playing on especially the faster songs on I'm Wide Awake that is just unmatchable. And
sure.
These songs, as much as I love these arrangements, just don't get there. With maybe one
I can
exception.
totally see that. Yeah.
But yeah, the fiddle on Ship in a Bottle is very good.
Oh, it's so good. How do you feel about the Faint cover?
It's cool.
Just put it out there. I like it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the Faint stuff super well, but I liked the song, and I mean, the Faint is a band I should really check out, especially having, listened to those guys play on so much of this Bright Eyes stuff.
Yeah, this is the first song on Dance Macabre, and I can tell you right now, it sounds nothing like this version.
Right.
That's an album I actually want to revisit in full pretty soon, because that was, I believe, what they were touring on, more or less touring on when, or no, I guess that would have been Wet from Birth. Never mind. Okay, well, either way, good song, good band. Check them out.
Yeah. And then, I mean, so this EP ends with the companion version of Goldmine Gutted, which is absolute perfection. This was already my favorite song from this era, and they somehow made a perfect song even more perfect. I don't know how they did it. I love it so much.
They added harmonica is a large part of it, I imagine. Also, the harmonies from Michaela on this one are just stellar. Like, that definitely brings it to another level in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, this is a song that, like, you know, even listening to the original version of it, like, you feel like you can just tell that it would be great with just an acoustic guitar. Like, you could play it with the I'm Wide Awake songs, and like we said earlier, lyrical differences, thematic stuff aside, like, you know, you could have put it right onto I'm Wide Awake, and it would have been, you know, if maybe acceptable, if not like a perfect fit. But, like, man, just to hear it with an acoustic guitar and the harmonica and everything is, like, it's wonderful. I was so happy. Like, this is the song that makes the entire companion project worth it, in my opinion. Not that it was, like, not worth it before, but, like, this is the one that makes it all make sense to me.
Yeah, this is maybe a pinnacle in the entire project. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. This is also the last companion EP that I've heard. I have not heard the Casadega one or the People's Key one, so I'm really curious how they redefine those songs.
Yeah, same. I hadn't listened to any of these companions prior to doing this series, so I'm looking forward to going in fresh with you on those.
Yeah. All right. Do you have a random recommendation for this week?
I do. I'm a little late to the party on this one because I had no idea it had come out until fairly recently. But I'm going to recommend the debut EP from Christian Science Reading Room, entitled "Under the Bed and in the Eyes of Another." This is a project from Harper from Greet Death, a band that I know has been mentioned on, I think, at least one episode of this podcast. And Elle Morgan, formerly of Bristletongue, in collaboration with Andrew Smith, who plays in Meth and Black Nail, and a bunch of other bands around town.
Footballhead?
Also, in Footballhead. But he recorded and played drums on this record, and I think did a couple of other things. But it's a despite like all of those credentials, it is I can only describe it as like Indian folk and also something else EP.
It's the first album that I've wanted to describe as majestic in a long time.
That is very, very on point. Yeah, it is just, it's absolutely majestic. It's super stellar. The arrangements are impeccable on these songs. Like, whenever I hear a banjo, I am not a bluegrass person, so I immediately go to Sufjan Stevens. So, like, I'm using that as a reference point on this EP. I know that's not everyone's thing. I promise you it doesn't actually sound like Sufjan Stevens. I'm using that as a compliment, though. But yeah, just everything about this is, like, kind of immaculate. Like, and also, like, pretty fresh in the world of like recent folk adjacent things that I've listened to. But yeah, it's a neat and tidy 5-song package. The album art is dope as hell. And I think this band is going to be huge, at least in Chicago. I hope they go far.
Yeah,
but looking forward to seeing them live whenever that happens.
They've got a ton of potential, I think.
I definitely agree. What do you got?
I am going to recommend an album that was surprise released on the day that we are recording this, October 21st, and that is the new album Side A by All Get Out. All Get Out is a sort of, I don't know, they're a rock band from Texas. They've toured a lot with Manchester Orchestra and Oh Brother and that kind of scene. They're a spectacular band. I love them a ton. Opened for them once and met them, and they were wonderful and nice. And this album is, if you somewhat like me have been a little bit not let down, but just kind of like felt like All Get Out has not quite recaptured the energy of their first couple albums over the last 5 years or five or more years, this is the one for you. This album rocks. Nate is just on all these songs vocally. I haven't had a chance to get into the lyrics yet because, again, this came out today. But it is this is like the All Get Out that I love the most. So very strong recommendation for this one. It is not on streaming services right as of now. It is only on Bandcamp. So give them the $10 and get this album.
Nice. I'm very excited to listen to this one. I was unaware that it came out until you mentioned it in the pre-roll for this episode. So I do like this band quite a bit. So that description is really selling me on it.
Cool. All right. That is it for this week then. We'll be back next week talking Casadega. In the meantime, you can find us on the internet at noisefloorpodcast.com and at noisefloorpod on Instagram, and send us email at noisefloorpodcast@gmail.com. And we will see you next week.
See you next week.